Hello, it is Tuesday, April 7th, and I'm Danny Gregory, and this is the live drawing party. Live drawing and party. We've got to maintain all three of those elements. Sabrina put this comment, which I loved. My husband just came in the room and said it smells like colored pencils here. It does. Today is going to be Colored Pencils Day, and that is well, maybe Tuesday is Colored Pencil Day. I like to think of Tuesday as Taco Tuesday, but I'm not sure. Um, it is going to be Colored Pencils Day. I see a lot of you are having nicer weather, like Giselle in France, who says it's sunny there. And other people have talked about the clouds finally drifting away. Thistle says it's clear blue skies in the middle of nowhere. And yes, so in general, Charlene says her clouds are supposed to blow away today. So who knows? Maybe the larger metaphoric clouds will start to move soon. But in the meantime, we're here and we're going to enjoy ourselves with a little bit of drawing action. Um, there are folks here from Steve in Missouri, where it's kind of sunny and warm. And Karine is in Morocco, where it is very sunny, understandably, Morocco. Wow, that's great. So there's so many people from so many places, and we're all experiencing the same thing, which today is going to be colored pencil drawing, which is nice. Um, it is sunny here in Phoenix as well, although there is some threat of rain and cold weather in the next couple of days. Let's not talk about the weather anymore. We're close enough friends that we can talk about more personal topics. One of the things have been thinking about, and we spent a fair amount of time yesterday watching birds. There are a lot of birds around here, and particularly quails, which are not birds that I've seen that much in the wild before, but they're they're unusual birds, right? You think of them as kind of goofy with a sort of little bobbing thing on their head. Well, we got into the middle of a quail kind of war. There were lots of different quails competing for what appeared to be one female. And then there were other species of birds that were kind of coming in and attacking. And there was just a lot of hubbub from a critter that you don't think of as being the center of controversy and belligerence, but there they were, quails battling it out. Generally, hummingbirds are the most kind of defenders of the territory that we see around here. But I've just been thinking there may or may not be birds around you, and you may not be seeing birds. But I have been thinking about nature, nature in general, nature in the abstract, nature in the specific. I spoke to my friend Lapin yesterday in Barcelona, and we were talking about nature and about drawing flora. And that's something I think we might want to do tomorrow. We might want to actually try and draw something in nature because I think it's important to think about nature when we're going through this. It gives us a sense of perspective. I mean, I look at these birds and I think like their lives are carrying on regardless, right? If anything, they're probably happier that we're not around as much. We spent the last few weeks living with a couple of dogs, and certainly their lives were kind of turned upside down a bit by the fact that humans were around all the time instead of off at work. Um, we left those dogs when we moved on Sunday, but one of them, Luna, had to go in and get spayed yesterday, which is sort of a cruel trick. But she's at that age, so she had to go to the vet and then come back with a cone, a cone of shame. Poor thing. So she's going to spend a few days in that. But watching these dogs and seeing, again, part of the whole nature of what we're going through is that it's purely a human event, right? This is only affecting us. It's not affecting all the other species on the planet, which is sort of ironic considering how much effect we generally have on them. And here they are free of this stuff that we're going through. So, and also thinking, I think I've mentioned to you that my brother-in-law Rick runs a planetarium at ASU, Arizona State University, and knows a huge amount about the planets and the stars. And we were watching Venus, and Venus was moving through a set of stars. I think they're called the Pleiades. Is that what they're called, the Pleiades? I don't know. She's not in the room. Anyway, Jenny was here. But yeah, so those watching those stars, and again, whenever you look at the stars, you just have this sense of insignificance. I'm sure you've had that feeling of going to a planetarium and suddenly it's like, all right, now we're going to pull back out of our solar system and deep into the other galaxies and through the Milky Way, and you think, ooh, my troubles don't amount to a hill of beans, as they say. So yeah, so I think thinking about all these things, thinking about, yes, it's true, there are an animal or two that are, they say the tigers at the Bronx Zoo. Yeah, that is sad, but hopefully my point is still true, which is this is our problem. And I don't know, contemplating nature gives you a sense of perspective and a sense of calm. Anyway, that's not what we're going to talk about today, though. We're going to talk about colored pencils. And I wanted to share with you a lesson taught by our friend Swasky. Swasky is a Spanish artist and illustrator, and he was one of the teachers in our class called Colored Pencils. And he talks about his approach to colored pencil drawing, which is exuberant and energetic. And we're going to watch his video and then try and follow his lesson, follow his example, okay? So here we go. Here's Swasky from Colored Pencils at Sketchbook School, which you can sign up for now if you'd like more Swasky and more of the other teachers who are in that class. We'll talk about it a bit more later on. Here we go. Swasky.
When I'm drawing outside or a place on location, as a sketcher, I tend to reduce my palette. It works better and you work faster. I try to simplify as much as I can. So I work with cold colors and warm colors. Here we have a scene with Kusha in front of me. And I pay attention to not just the things that are right in front of me and the person that I want to draw. It's also, if you introduce something that is right in front of you, like the plant, everything that is in front of you, then you create this sensation of depth using things that are in the foreground. Okay, so then I'm going to start with the foreground. Now I'm going to use the violet and see how they behave together. The foreground, I'm not going to work too much into detail, not giving too much. Just like a draft to create this foreground for filling it. If you are working with watercolor, you know that the first wash should be lighter. Here I have the orange and the red. Orange is, for me, lighter than red then, so I'm going to work with orange. Yeah. And again, I use the negative space for drawing her. This is not my best portrait, but we are always learning. So we have to know that there are things that they are not working, and with mistakes you learn a lot. And cafeterias are really good places to learn how to draw people. It's something that you learn because people they move. If they move an arm or whatever, I draw it because they are living and they are all the time moving. So now I'm combining also the blue here to create more volume. I want to emphasize the foreground, so I'm going to mix the colors. Creativity, it's related to breaking the rules. And I think if you cannot break the rules, it's because you are not being creative. Because rules are good as a starting point. Now I'm dealing with the likeness of a portrait, and it's something that people, they're really, really, really scared. I want to emphasize here, but not too much. Sometimes the drawing is finished because people leave. They are gone. Another one is because I'm run out of time, so I have to leave. Now I am more experienced, and usually I draw on place and then I finish them at home. My intention is giving to people the sensation that I was there and there was a kind of light, just that sensation of being in a place. Oh.
Okay, Swasky is an urban sketcher, and I think one of the great things about that lesson that he gives is really how do you capture this moment that's fleeting, that's transient, right? That you're sitting in a cafe, there's somebody sitting there, they get up, they walk away. How do you capture that energy that's out there? And I think this kind of quality of building up your layers, foreground, midground, background, and using different colors to do that, but then also how you start to blend them together. So I see you guys are all talking about the brands of colored pencils you use. I hope you're also having a chance to start working on this project. So I'm going to do that. So basically what we want to do is we want to focus on whatever is right in front of us. And I started drawing while Swasky was talking. I'm just drawing what is on the table in front of me. And I sort of laid it all out, but now I really want to kind of capture what he was talking about in terms of that energy. So it's not using color to capture the actual color of the things. So these pencils are all obviously not blue, but I do want to kind of create the sense that there are planes, right? There's this plane of stuff that's in the foreground, and then there are other elements that are the edge, the rest of this table, and then the background beyond it. So, I'm just going to keep layering these pencil elements and just using lots of different shades of, to really keep the sort of three, so then you have a question like this, sort of these three different planes that I've been focusing on, and then when you have something that is sort of both, right? It's in the middle. It's in the middle, as well as being in the foreground in this case. So I might want to kind of may have a strategy for how I'm going to cope with that, how I'm going to point out that this thing transitions from being in the foreground, perhaps, to maybe to being in the background, which is, I've been using warmer colors to represent that. There's also another question is also how intensely do you want to make your line? I mean, what Swasky was showing in his demonstration was where do you want your focus to be? So before I go kind of nuts with this chair, I have to sort of decide that, and I think that probably my focus is going to be, I think it's more interesting if it is in the mid level, just because you have something in the foreground that's kind of blocking what you're seeing, and then you have the background. But in the case of what I'm drawing, there's nothing that interesting. There's this sort of backpack that's lying on the desk, and I don't know how much of a fuss I want to make about that, really. So I think ultimately this jar of pencils is going to have to be the subject of my drawing. So it's really about which I guess is appropriate. That's the story I'm going to tell. That we're focusing on colored pencils today, so therefore I'm going to do that. It would be nice if I had a person sitting here or something, but I don't. Just me by myself, and I'm drawing from observation, so I'm not going to make stuff up. I'm going to try and really focus on drawing what I see. And so I think what is nice about that drawing that Swasky did was the intensity of the colors that he was getting. I'm using these Dixon color art pencils, which I found, as I think I've told you. And, they're not my color pencils of choice. They're fine, but, Prismacolors and intense colors are so much more rich and intense, for lack of a better word. The verbal part of my brain is shutting down as I focus on drawing. Sorry. Some of the hardest things that I have to do in my job is to use two parts of my brain simultaneously, to draw and to talk. Do you find the same to be true of drawing and, I don't know, texting? Probably impossible. There's actually a sheet of paper back here, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting in some of the solid elements here. So there's the solid table, and that might be interesting because I'm going to be able to show really where these different levels end and begin by having the transition occur in this table. So maybe this chair back here should really be yellow because it's almost the background. And then so should this edge of this table be yellow. And then the thing kind of merges. And it also gives a nicer background to the jar of pencils and makes them stand out. You can also use the intensity of the color as a factor. So press harder, and then you can also go back to a faded, softer quality. I think you get the sense of the transition here. It's a little crude, but all right. The nice thing about colored pencils is you can really go between line and color. So you can do color blocks as well as then turn something into a line or turns a line into a color block. So it really is that transition between contour and shape that I like. So yeah, I don't think this is entirely, this white piece of paper is sort of bugging me a bit, but see, I picked up this yellow pencil thinking, oh, this pencil sharpener is yellow, let me color it in yellow. No, that's not the point of this exercise in my mind. It is instead to create a sense of depth using color to indicate the different planes. So there you have it. One of the things I enjoyed about taking this course, because I was sort of a bystander. Kosha produced this course in Amsterdam, and I was a bystander. I just got to watch the videos as they came in through the over the transom. But color pencils is something I've always sort of enjoyed. I've usually used them in conjunction with um, I've used them in conjunction with watercolor more than anything. Using them as a way to kind of add some POW quality to watercolors. And the watercolor can appear a little anemic, but when you layer colored pencils on top of them, they can be much more saturated. So that's generally my approach, and they do cover that a bit in this course. But I think it's also just neat to see just you know what else you can do with colored pencils. I think in general we tend to get locked into one perspective of a medium, and we say to ourselves, yeah, I use this in that way. And sometimes taking time to see how other artists use a medium can really shock the system and change you and make you suddenly go, you know what, I need to rethink this because that is a cool effect that I would like to accomplish, but I had no idea that that's what people were doing with it. So right, so that's kind of rough, but it was fun to do. And I'd like to see, and maybe I'll do some more work on this later on. I'm not sure that this, I wish I'd had a human being to have drawn, but I'm here all alone. I'm not even sure where my wife is. Hopefully she didn't leave the compound. But yeah. And then I have this purple, which I've also been using to kind of add some strength to it. It's again a cool color, so I'm going to use that as my foreground. This is a little bit weird because it's sort of the reverse of the way that one would usually use these colors. I think of cool colors as being the kind of background plane. You think of the environment adding a layer of blue, what I think they call sfumato. Is that what it's called? That's, you see it in like in Da Vinci paintings. That's when I think I first encountered that idea of things are further away through the atmosphere and they tend to become cooler. So therefore, you could sort of say, okay, then maybe things in the foreground should be warmer. Um, and here I've done the opposite. But that was following Swasky's example. Ask him why that was the way he did it. So maybe you can see a little bit of the midground through the jar, so therefore it becomes a bit yellowish. All right. So good. There we have it. A quick sketch of not much. And that was fun. So that was using, basically, I was using 5 colors. And 2 of them are basically the same color. I didn't really use these 2 yellows. So it was basically, I was using 4 colors. I had a couple of greens sitting here, but I never got to them. But maybe we'll get to them tomorrow when we draw nature in some form. So hopefully you can get some nature together to draw. Could be, could be some celery. It could be a plant. It could be a forest. It's up to you. So yes, so that was fun to do. And scribbling, yes, scribbling is a little chaotic, but it gives energy, right? Scribbling is motion, is movement, and that is a way of kind of putting some zest into your thing. It is also problematic, though. I'll tell you why I'm also hesitant about scribbling. The downside of scribbling is the lack of specificity. So, we talk about this quite often, particularly when it comes to drawing with a pen versus drawing with a pencil, is that when you draw with a pen and you really are in the groove and you have control of your medium, you have a sense of confidence in the way that you're drawing, you draw authoritatively. So your line is specific. What I see a lot in beginners, people who haven't drawn for a while or just taking it up, is a lack of specificity. So there tends to be shagginess in their lines. And, so let's just go back to this, when you have, this kind of scratchiness to a line, drawing it several times, it tends to be less specific. It tends to suggest that the artist, wasn't entirely sure what he was seeing. I mean, that's one interpretation. It could also be a technique that you want to use. But then when you go back over it multiple times, it again tends to make it seem like you have less confidence, as opposed to, let's just demonstrate this. So let's say the difference between I'm kind of drawing in a shaggy way. Here's a shaggy kind of example of drawing this jar that's sitting in front of me. I'm kind of shagging it. Shagging it? Yeah, that means something else. We won't go there. But yeah, so I'm just being kind of shaggy, right? As opposed to a more specific, confident contour line like this, let's say. So it has a different feeling, right? It has a different feel, these 2 drawings, So this one does, I think, feel more confident. I mean, so again, if I went back in and I kind of started correcting things, I could, before long, turn this confident drawing into a shaggy drawing. But I think most of us would like to do confident drawing, because if you can do confident drawing, you can always go back and do shaggy drawing. But if you do shaggy drawing, you're not using the opportunity to slow down. And instead of saying like, yeah, it's kind of like this sort of, it's like one of these lines. And I always equate it with stuttering, or not just stuttering, but also the verbal tics that a lot of people have when they speak, where they'll say kind of sort of like, yeah, sort of like that type of speaking is hesitant, is shaggy, right? Because you're thinking while you're talking. Confident line drawing feels like you know what you want to say. And a lot of times that's what we want to do with our drawing. We want to confidently convey what it is we're talking about. Um, so yes, Sabrina says shagginess isn't necessarily the same as scribbling. It's true. So that's what I'm saying. Scribbling, shagginess, there are points of difference. So Doris wants to know what she's missed. Okay, Doris, well, you're going to have to watch the recording of this because it's getting close to ending the session. But I want to say, that we are going to meet tomorrow in nature. And the thing about nature drawing, and I'm going to show you this little interview that I had with Lapin, talking about him drawing succulent plants on the roof of his house in Barcelona. And what really struck me about this conversation, and I think you'll see it if you've been following Lapin, if you know Lapin, Lapin, he is an extraordinary urban sketcher, and he draws all over the world, draws buildings and street scenes, and he also draws cars beautifully, and he draws great portraits of people. But he said that, being in quarantine obviously has limited what he can draw. And so he's taken on drawing these plants, and it's given him an opportunity to um, to contemplate them, and he's found that very calming. But also, I think a lot of the detail and focus that he puts into drawing his normal subjects, planes, cars, faces, buildings, streets, he's applying to drawing plants. And I think that would be fun to explore. That could be really interesting to do. So, yeah, so that's what we will do tomorrow. We'll check in with Lapin. I wanted to also point out to you that we released a new workshop yesterday. So yesterday, Sunday, Saturday. New workshop this week. Or there's a new workshop. It's called Kosh's Killer Sketchbook Filler. And it is a workshop. It's going to be a relatively short workshop. I think it's less than 2 hours, no. But in those 2 hours, it's going to be an intense opportunity to expand your creativity. And it's what this workshop is about is how to overcome that moment when you go, what am I going to draw today? I don't know what to do. And what we call blank page paralysis, lack of a better term, the idea that you just don't know how to put down that very first line. And this class is about how you get over that. And how, in the course of this very fast-paced workshop, Kosha is going to take us through lots and lots and lots of ideas, and we're going to build a workbook. So we're going to start with a blank sketchbook, and at the end of it, we're going to fill 50 pages, 50 pages, with lots and lots of prompts and ideas. We're going to do a lot of exercises, but we're going to end up with this book that becomes a resource that you can go back to. And you can say, oh, what am I going to draw? Let me just open the book at random, and there's suggestions, there's examples. So you really can, I did a book called Art Before Breakfast Workbook, which was a similar kind of opportunity to have a workbook that had all these ideas in it. But Kosha is going to help us to build our own. So using our own inspiration and creating our own book in the end. So it's not some book that somebody else started. It's going to be entirely ours. Each of us is going to get it. So I think that will be really fun and a real opportunity to first of all have a couple of hours of real fun in a workshop, frenziedly making stuff, but then also in the months, years ahead, you'll always be able to come back to this and say, oh, okay, now I know what to do. And I think what happens is so often, once you take the first step, once you do the first line, once you know the first thing you're going to draw, it starts to snowball, and it takes you in directions you hadn't even anticipated. So a lot of times we do need that first push. We need to just shove us down the hill, move us the first foot, and then we start rolling, and we go in all kinds of interesting ways. So even though we're all going to end up with a workbook that has a lot of similar kinds of elements to it, we're going to all take them in different directions. So that excites me. So anyway, um, why don't you check it out? Go to sketchbookskool.com and look at the workshop section, and you'll learn some more about this workshop that we're doing. By the way, I also wanted to point out another thing, which is we are building what we're calling the Corona Creativity Guide resource. And we've started it, but we've been adding to it and building it more and more. So it's a page on our website that is full of stuff that we make that can keep you occupied and inspired, and also cool stuff that we find. And so we're building this page on sketchbookskool.com that has a lot of this stuff in it. So we work on it every day, and there's lots and lots of things on it right now. So go and check it out at sketchbookskool.com, and at the top you'll see Corona Creativity Guide. What is it actually called? I'll tell you tomorrow. I'll give you a bit more specific URL. It slips my mind right now because I'm still thinking about color penciling. But you know, it is an interesting resource. So, and also hopefully you're joining me and Coach every morning on Instagram when at 9 o'clock she's doing a live thing on Instagram, 9 o'clock Eastern. So, all right, that's enough telling you free stuff. I see a lot of you are sharing information and ideas and promoting your own stuff. I'm not sure who Eshal Nusrat is, but she seems to be very active or he in the commenting. So thank you. Yes, so a fundraiser. Okay. Yes. Um, yeah, it feels a little spammy, whatever you're doing, Eshal. So we're going to ask you to stop doing that now. Anyway, thank you all for joining me, and I'll see you again tomorrow at 9 o'clock East. I'm sorry, noon Eastern, and we will draw something else. Hopefully, it was easier to find your way here today, and you were able to enjoy this without the usual confusion. And we had no technical problems. Thought I would reserve saying that until the very end, but it worked out quite well. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again tomorrow. And meanwhile, fill your day with drawing and calm and relaxation and colored pencils, and tomorrow with nature. See you then.